Is there a gavel? No gavel. Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you here for this annual meeting that we have the Monday before we go back to Richmond, and we want to hear from you all. We don't ask a lot of questions because we want to spend the time listening to what you all introduce themselves and what areas they represent. Oh, I didn't see you. Sorry, Delegate Lemunyon, Jim Lemunyon.
Thank you, Dick. I was just putting my coat away. I'm Jim Lemunyon, represent the 67th District, which is centered in and around Chantilly and includes portions of Loudoun County as well. Good to be with you this morning.
I am Senator Jennifer Wexton. I represent the 33rd District, which includes Herndon and parts of Chantilly in Fairfax County.
Good morning, Chap Peterson. I'm sort of working two screens here. I represent Central Fairfax, Fairfax City, Town of Vienna, and Western Fairfax out to Centerville.
Good morning. I'm Senator Dave Marson. I represent the Centerville area across the county out to Lake Barcroft, including where you're sitting today.
Vivian Watts. I represent Springfield, Annandale, House of Delegates.
Good morning. I'm Barbara Favola. I represent the 31st Senate District, which is parts of Arlington, and then up the Potomac River, I have part of McLean and Great Falls and 6 precincts in Loudoun. Glad to see you this morning.
Good morning. My name is Mark Sickles. I represent the 43rd District, part of Fairfax County. Southern Fairfax County, including Greater Franconia and Greater Lorton.
Good morning. I'm Delegate Ken Plum, represent the 36th District. That's Reston and a little piece of Herndon, a little piece of Vienna. Thank you all for being here.
Dick Saslaw, and again, welcome. I represent the 35th Senate District, which is a large part of Central Fairfax. There's a few precincts outside the Beltway. I have Merrifield and the city of Falls Church and the Fairfax and the Falls Church zip codes that are actually in Fairfax County, and the 4 precincts in the west end of the city of Alexandria.
Good morning. I'm Janet Howell. I represent the 32nd Senate District. That includes all of Tysons, all of Reston, big areas of the suburbs of Vienna, and also Oakton, and goes then into Arlington for quite a ways. Thank you for coming out today. We're really looking forward to what you have to say. And don't be too nervous. Some of us get nervous on public speaking too.
Good morning. I'm David Bulova. I represent the 37th District in the House of Delegates. That includes the City of Fairfax Government Center area where you're at today, and then stretches out I-66 to Centerville.
Good morning. I'm Delegate Kathleen Murphy. I represent the 34th District in Virginia. It includes McLean, Great Falls, parts of Loudoun County, and I'm really glad to see a lot of familiar faces here and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Eileen Filler-Korn. I represent the 41st District in the Virginia House of Delegates. It's all within Fairfax County, Springfield, Burke, Fairfax, and Fairfax Station. It's great to see you all this morning. Thanks for braving the weather. I look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, I'm Paul Krizak. I represent the 44th Delegate District. That's Mount Vernon and Lee. We're in South County. Thank you.
I'm Senator Scott Sturvell. I represent James Madison University, is winning the national championship today at noon. And I also represent the Route 1 corridor, Kingstown, and Mason Neck area of Fairfax County.
Good morning. I'm Marcus Simon. I'm on the far left of the dais where I'm very comfortable for you all. I represent the 53rd House of Delegates District, which is eastern Fairfax County. Falls Church addresses, so anything in Fairfax County that touches Falls Church City out to Merrifield.
Thank you so much. All right, Mr. Ludwig, is he here? Yes, and on deck is Dwayne Ludwig. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Andy Ludwig, and I used to live in Senator Howell's district, but about 4 years ago I moved to near Bailey's Crossroads and bought a house that's in Senator Saslaw's district and Delegate Lopez's. And I want to start by thanking all of you for everything that you're doing to improve our community. It means a lot. And so I'm sorry to start off with a topic that's serious and difficult, but I'm hoping that you will humor me by participating in this poll by raising your hand. And I invite the audience as well to raise your hand with this poll to help me communicate to them how important this is to our community. So if you would please raise your hand if you have a friend or family member who have been touched by one of the following illnesses. So please raise your hand if you know somebody who has PTSD, mental illness, or Alzheimer's. My coworker is a veteran with PTSD, so I'm in this group. Please raise your hand if you know somebody with Crohn's, multiple sclerosis, or epilepsy. My best friend's mother had MS, so this is unfortunately another group that I'm in. And finally, please raise your hand if you know somebody who's had cancer or chronic pain from an old injury. My wife has already confronted thyroid cancer, so unfortunately I'm in all three of these groups. And basically every hand went up, right? And thank you everyone for raising your hands, I appreciate that. But how are all these related? And they are all conditions for which cannabis, commonly known as marijuana, has been shown to provide therapeutic benefit. In other words, it can help lessen your pain and in some cases help you fight against it, as it does for certain forms of cancer. But it's still prohibited in Virginia, and people are arrested for using it. 28 states and DC get this, and 1/6 of our country, 8 states, 65 million people have gone all the way and completely legalized it, creating an industry and tens of thousands of new jobs. And Virginia has taken a small step with CBD oils for epilepsy, and I hope that you'll reenact that. But given that almost 90% of Virginians support this, I expect a larger leap. There's no public policy that we're getting more completely wrong. You'll hear from more people about this topic, and I urge you to consider it, making it one of your priorities, and to help us move the rest of the state along with us on this issue to bring us all some much needed relief. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne Ludwig is next, followed by Richard Kennedy.
Thank you for your time, you guys. Thank you so much. In the year 2017, it is long past time that we ended the prohibition of marijuana. A solid majority of Virginia citizens, approximately 70%, understand this, and yet many are fearful of speaking up due to the stigma attached to a technically illegal activity. As the GA reps of our state's most progressive part, it's not a stretch for me to assume that by now all of you are educated enough on this topic to know that the laws badly need changing. In addition to the crucial need for access to medical cannabis, as explained by my brother just now, there are numerous compelling reasons for rolling back prohibition that clearly qualify as bipartisan in nature or even nonpartisan. It is with these narratives that we can engage our Republican friends as co-sponsors, or at least for vote support in committee. Let's start with veterans. All politicians want to do right by vets. So why aren't we all unified in support for a medicine that calms PTSD symptoms, eases physical pains, and allows one to reduce opioid use? Prohibition is forcing many of these heroes to break the law or be stuck with the pharmaceuticals that can make their lives a haze or leave them addicted. It's not right. Next, keeping families together. It should be no secret that a criminal charge can make it nearly impossible to find or hold a steady job, apply for or receive a scholarship, or maintain custody of your child. Virginia's 20,000 plus annual marijuana arrests are severely stressing and oftentimes breaking up families. Why must possession of this non-toxic plant lead to such a result for so many? And finally, cost to the taxpayer. Republicans and Democrats alike should be appalled by how much we spend enforcing marijuana laws, prosecuting the cases, and even incarcerating those who have one charge too many. Reputable analysis puts Virginia's cost at least $70 million per year for the criminal justice aspects alone. It's clear that prohibition is not having the desired effect on use, so why not reduce this expense by promoting a bipartisan bill to decriminalize cannabis? We could then raise revenue through an assessed fine for offenders. And our cops and prosecutors can focus on actual crimes. So we request your assistance in proposing the kind of legislation that makes sense for Virginia and will attract the votes of lawmakers of all stripes. Please ask us any questions you have when we visit you on January 30th in Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Richard Kennedy, followed by Victor Munker.
Yes, I'm Richard Kennedy. This is my 5th time here to plead for sensible marijuana policies. I'm almost 76, so I'd really like to wrap this up when I'm still young enough to deal with climate change. I would rather be home right now with my dog. I'm here for the same reason that I was a civil rights volunteer in Mississippi in 1964. It's a badly misguided policy that's causing harm to our country. I still haven't tried marijuana. I graduated from Princeton in '63 without ever hearing the word mentioned. And I ended up as a CI analyst where use of illegal drugs would not have been career enhancing. But back in grad school in '69, I found that everyone seemed to be smoking pot, and I got interested in it as a policy issue. It was clear then that marijuana is safer than alcohol or tobacco, and that conclusion has only gotten stronger over the years. CDC says that tobacco kills 480,000 people a year, alcohol 88,000, and there is no number for marijuana because studies can't detect any difference in death rates between users and non-users. Two things have happened since '69. One is the huge increase in arrests from about 100,000 a year to a peak of 900,000 just for marijuana, and of course the huge racial disparity that has emerged in those arrests. The second is the emerging evidence of marijuana's remarkable medical properties. I don't ask you to believe me. I do ask you to use unbiased sources and watch the states that have legalized. There is good evidence that traffic fatalities are down, as are opioid overdose deaths and teen use. I note that all these recreational drugs are what we economists call substitute goods. If one becomes more available, people use more of it and less of the others. On the key point of the safety vis-a-vis alcohol and tobacco, my handout has 7 different groups, including anti-drug groups such as NIDA, the Partnership for a Drug-Free America, and even DEA, say about these 3 drugs when they have to write about them in the same document.
Is this mine or yours?
On teen use, which we all agree is a bad thing, I have 2 charts in my handout showing, I think, that regulation works better than prohibition in reducing teen use. One is a chart showing teen use since 1975. It shows that both tobacco or cigarette and alcohol use have declined steadily to all-time lows, while marijuana use has fluctuated. And the final one is just this compares the U.S. to other Western countries, the countries I worked on at CIA, and shows how we have done very well in reducing alcohol and cigarette use, but not other drugs. And final note, other people here have asked you to spend more money. I'm asking for something that would bring in revenue, and I note that Colorado, with only 5 million people, took in almost $200 million last year in marijuana taxes, which I'm sure you all could find a good use for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Munker. And on deck is Barry Weinstein.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak today. I'm actually here in full support of Nova Normal, but I'm here speaking on my behalf. My name is Victor Paul Munker, Jr. I am a SAP Business Object System Administrator for the Consular Affairs at the State Department. I currently hold a top secret clearance, so I'm pretty sure most of you are probably wondering why I'm even speaking on this topic right now. To those individuals, I will say that it's not illegal for you to speak on this matter, it's illegal for you to use this medicine. The reason I say it's a medicine is because I'm currently 34 years old. I'm currently diagnosed with diabetes and I have a herniated disc in my L4, L5 quadrant of my spine. 422 million people are living in this world with diabetes, suffering horrific things with this, struggling to deal with it. That means currently I'm ranked twice, or actually, I'm sorry, my apologies. Diabetes in this country alone, diabetes is the #1 health expenditure in this country, followed behind heart disease and back pain. That means I rank twice in the top 3 things in this country. After I was diagnosed with diabetes, my endocrinologist found out that I have 11.2 for my A1C. For those who are not familiar with that, A1C is basically a historical document of your blood for the past 3 months. After I found out I had that, within 3 months' time, I dropped it from 11.2 to a 5.7. My doctor told me I was the first person to ever do that. She told me that that was not medication that did that, that was me. But also when I went to the Lifetime Fitness Gym, they actually have this machine that's called the InBody machine. You get scans, basically you test to see how much fat's in your lean muscle mass, how much water's in your cells, yada, 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 right? Again, guy told me for a diabetic, I was the first person to hit green metrics on everything. Again, being the first. Now, I did some more research because I figured out I dropped weight, about 60 pounds without even exercising, doing any of this stuff. Come to find out I actually have this rare form of diabetes, type 1.5. I don't have much time to speak on it, but I urge everyone to look this up. There's a rare form, 1.5. It's not just type 1 and type 2. There's a 1.5 now. But what I like to do is talk on why I want to continue to be in the first. Cannabis has been known for centuries to have multiple healing properties inside of it, and it's been healing many ailments. You've heard multiple people discuss some of the ailments that they're having, and this can help heal them. But as it stands right now, the state of Virginia and the federal government is standing in my way of continuing to be the first person. What I would like to do is I would like to be the first person to ever cure diabetes. If you tell me that that it's not possible to cure diabetes, even with the help of cannabis, then what I say to you is my endocrinologist also told me that there's no way I can sustain myself eating 20 grams of carbs per meal. That was 2 years ago, and before she lowered my medication from 1,000 milligrams twice a day to 500 milligrams twice a day. So,
thank you very much.
Real quick, if I may ask, sure. Does anyone know in this audience or up here exactly how much it would take for someone to overdose on cannabis? No one? Researchers have discovered that they stated they cannot quantify it, but they've come up close. They said that it would take an individual to digest 1,500 pounds in 15 minutes to overdose from cannabis. Compare that to the other drugs that the government says is safe, and I guarantee your answer will be vastly different.
Thank you very much. And on deck is Teresa Elder, followed by Teresa Champion.
Senator Sasslaw, members of the Virginia General Assembly, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this important topic. My name is Beth Collins, and I live in Fairfax. This will be my 3rd year making numerous trips to Richmond to meet with members of the Virginia General Assembly to discuss the issue of medical cannabis or marijuana, for which, for many, has been a very difficult topic to get their heads around. It has required our lawmakers to look beyond what they thought they knew about this plant and see its potential as medicine. A medicine that is not only saving the lives of the children whose parents fought so hard for safe access to it, but could potentially help so many of Virginians who are suffering. In 2013, my daughter Jennifer, who was then 13, and I left my husband and other daughter to live in Colorado, where we stayed for 1 year to try medical cannabis in hopes of finding her relief for her more than 300 small seizures a day. Jennifer suffers from J. Vaughan syndrome, which causes her to have these 15 to 10 seconds seizures, which can cluster and cause 2 to 3 minute tonic-clonic or grand mal seizures, which often require rescue medications. Almost worse than the seizures were the side effects of the medications she tried that not only failed to control her seizures, but caused devastating side effects such as rages, where she would physically attack me, thoughts of suicide, self-harm, and cognitive decline. So we went to Colorado because we refused to believe what doctors were saying, that this was the best we could do. Since starting cannabis oil, Jen has not had any grand mal seizures. Although not completely gone, she now has some days with very few small seizures at all. She is nearly off all pharmaceuticals and has not had any rages, thoughts of suicide, or self-harm since weaning them. She is able to do much better in school, and thanks to the efforts of Senator Dave Marsden and Delegates Dave Albo and Eileen Fillercorn, and the Virginia General Assembly who voted for their bills, she is able to possess her cannabis oil and remain in the home she loves with her family and attend Robinson High School with her childhood friends. While we were so grateful for this, we still have to regularly break the law to obtain Jen's cannabis oil. I cannot begin to tell you how stressful it is when I see her oil supply getting lower, and I'm not certain how I'm going to get our next supply. Last year, Senator Marsden sponsored and Delegate Fillercorn co-sponsored SB 701, which instructed the Board of Pharmacy to come up with rules and regulations for the production and distribution of cannabidiol and THCA oils in the state of Virginia for people with intractable epilepsy. Thanks to the open minds of all of you, the bill passed and the Board of Pharmacy worked over the summer to draft the regulations to make this possible. I was on the advisory panel and was extremely impressed with the diversity of knowledge of its members, which consisted of neurologists, pharmacists, parents, industry representatives, and others. We provided input to the Board of Pharmacy, and the regulations have been drafted and approved. Last year's bill had a reenactment clause, so we're asking the General Assembly to support SB 1027, introduced by Senator Marsden, which will provide the production and distribution of these oils under the supervision of a licensed pharmacist for those like my daughter with epilepsy. I urge you to support this bill so parents like myself no longer have to break the law to save our children, and we can continue to make positive gains in this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Champion, you're up, and Ms. Elder, excuse me, I'm sorry. And then Ms. Champion, followed by John Fawcett.
Hi, my name is Teresa Elder. Some of you may better remember me as Tommy's mom. My son Tommy is 24 years old and has a severe seizure disorder, also known as intractable epilepsy. Intractable, by its own definition, means unmanageable and uncontrollable. Tommy's been on 16 different pharmaceuticals with hundreds of different medication combinations, had several surgeries to include brain surgery, all to no avail. In January of 2015, I stood before a Senate committee in Richmond and I explained the detriment to a person and family living with intractable epilepsy. I pleaded with that Senate committee to help us help our children. Just 8 days later, Senator Marsden stood by Tommy's bed in the ICU at Fairfax Hospital while he was on life support for the 41st time in his short life. I realized right then and there that my voice mattered, and that as Senator Marsden told me he was going to speak to many of you about the situation and add an emergency clause to that year's bill, I also realized that he got it. He saw that this was real, life or death. He had a chance to make a difference, and he did. Keep in mind, this was not a publicity stunt. There was no media, there was no cameras. It was just Senator Marsden, who most of the nurses thought were Tommy's grandfather, visiting a constituent, a family, to better understand what we were facing and what we were asking for. I'm here today in support of Senate Bill 1027, permitting pharmaceutical processors to manufacture and provide cannabidiol, CBD, or THCA oil. Previous bills, you can tell I'm rusty at this. Previous bills from CBD and THC oil, which I am grateful you all voted into law, have had significant steps in helping us save our children. Quite literally, let me share this example with you. In January 2015, I stood with Senator Marsden before that Senate committee and held up my huge, long list of almost $1 million in medical bills for the previous couple of years, where Tommy had been on life support for about 17 times. In last year, 2016, he was on life support once. And I could be here all day telling you about the cognitive advances he's had in the last year. However, the fact remains that one of our biggest continued problems is where to obtain this life-saving oil. Senate Bill 1027 is the next step in the right direction to allow us to obtain CBD and THCA oil within Virginia from an authorized pharmaceutical processor. The bill has tight limits to ensure rules and regulations set forth by the Board of Pharmacy are strictly followed. It's impossible to explain everything in 3 minutes, so you'll be seeing us in Richmond in a few weeks, and I encourage you between now and then to become familiar with Senate Bill 1027 and be open to hearing our voices and our reasons for supporting this bill. I'd like to thank you again, Senator Marston, for introducing this bill. And from that very first meeting several years ago in Starbucks with yourself and Delegate Fillercorn, Beth and I realized the hill we had to climb. And we're willing to keep buying hiking boots if you guys are willing to keep supporting us.
Thank you.
The Virginia General Assembly continues to prove that you listen and you care. Let's continue to make Virginia a proud state that others follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Weitzmann, you're here, and following Ms. Weitzmann is Warren Wheeler and Gregory Scott. I'll be right back.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Weitzmann. I've lived in Northern Virginia for more than 25 years and am a homeowner in Reston. I vote, I participate, and I've worked on some of your campaigns. I'm not afraid of change, and I do not go away. I'd like to encourage the Commonwealth to rethink the prohibitions on cannabis. As an investor, I'd like to participate in the green rush, enormous opportunities for new products and services afforded by the cannabis industry. A recent Forbes article states that North American sales grew by 30% to $6.7 billion. Unfortunately, in 2016. Unfortunately, Virginia, which prides itself on being business-friendly, provides a limited and mostly illegal pathway. As a woman of a certain age, I know the healing properties of cannabis and cannabinoids. Good for my mild anxiety, aches and pains, much more beneficial for people with epilepsy, cancer, HIV/AIDS, to name a few more dire afflictions, people who are really suffering. Again, there is a very limited and illegal pathway. As a Fairfax County taxpayer, I see rich rewards for municipalities. According to an recent article in the Denver Post, Denver alone took in $29 million. Didn't we just defeat a meals tax referendum? Couldn't we use the money? I've heard so many stories here today. Education, housing, people who are really in need. This is a lot of money that we could really use for positive change in Fairfax County. These are certainly good arguments, but pale in comparison to the havoc that current laws regarding possession wreak. Lives, mostly young lives, are ruined for growing and possessing cannabis, and I can guarantee that middle-aged, college-educated white women are not the demographic most affected. Currently, 21% of the U.S. population live in legal adult use markets, and revenues are expected to exceed $20.2 billion by 2021, which sounds like space age, but it's just a couple of years. Now I'm feeling a bit peaked, and I will return to my seat to enjoy my Kashi hemp bar. Ladies and gentlemen, the future is here. I look forward to seeing you in Richmond. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Vivian Perea, you're up, and Tim Thompson is next, followed by Rafael Fernandez.
Hi, my name is Vivian Perea. I have been a Fairfax County resident for 18 years. I graduated from high school here, and after I attended Georgetown University. I am part of the 1%, not the 1% that Bernie Sanders spoke of, the 1% of the population that lives with a disease called hidradenitis suppurativa. It is an autoimmune disease that affects sweat glands located under your arms, breasts, and groin areas. Your glands are not formed properly, so they create lesions and boils under these pretty sensitive areas. They can be as small as a pea, and they can grow to the size of a softball. I got my first one under my arm when I was 9, and it has been spreading ever since. I was not properly diagnosed until I was 26 because of its rarity. There is no cure. Treatment consists of antibiotics daily, opioids, and having the skin around the affected area removed, allowing it to heal, and then praying that it doesn't come back. I once read that it is the 3rd most painful disease, and most people with it are unable to even work. I was never given that option. You see, my mom also has HS. She showed me how to bandage myself up, keep going, and look for a solution. I could go to just about any doctor, lift my arm up, and they would say, here's Oxycontin, here's Percocet. I have seen what opioids do to people. I don't want to dull the pain, I want a cure. And I found that in cannabis. Not only has it helped me with my pain, it's actually helped to heal my body. But using it in the state of Virginia makes me a criminal. I'm here today to push for legalization that will help people like me. When we think about potential marijuana users, we think about cancer, epilepsy, AIDS. When we write in specific conditions, where will this leave me? The 1% that deserves an alternative to long-term pain relief. As I said before, I know what opioids do to people. It usually leads to heroin addictions when people can't get a refill. Did you know that heroin and Oxycontin have almost the same identical makeup? I don't want to be an addict. I want to be a productive member of society. And this push for legalization for people like me who want to function and want to be heard. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, delegates and senators, for representing your Virginia constituents. I myself have started an organization. They spelled it out, I noticed, on a thing, Saving Our Society, pulling all communities together. Originally, it was Saving Our Society, police and citizens together. When I first started my activist deal from my family business, and as time went by, I would get a hard time from people about working with the police. So I changed it to something more positive. And along with that, about 5 years ago, all of a sudden a gentleman was speaking with LEAP, that's this badge here, which is law enforcement against prohibition. And he was speaking at a normal meeting, which I've heard several normal people speaking today, which is the National Organization to Reform Marijuana Laws. They came out in the 70s, and every state has the state normal, Virginia normal, DC normal, Delaware normal. And then we have major cities, like in Virginia, we have Richmond normal, Culpeper normal, Jefferson area normal, and Harrisonburg normal, Roanoke normal, Nova normal, all these normal groups, and a lot of other groups like DPA, Drug Policy Alliance, SSDP, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and every major university in every state has that, and other universities as well. So it's growing with all these different organizations like Weed for Warriors. I was with Weed for Warriors last Veterans Day, and we dumped about 1,000 pill bottles on the White House sidewalk, and they give me this pin as well, or dog tag, which says 22, because every day 22 veterans commit suicide because they're not allowed cannabis that would work for them instead of the big pharma medicines that basically have ill side effects and it causes people more depression and suicidal. And so we want for our veterans, and actually American Legion is standing up for them now as well and going to Congress to ask for medical marijuana for cannabis, true name, from 1850 to 1937. It was on the shelves as cannabis extracts for hundreds of different diseases. It got bumped by the corporate government for their own selfish, greedy benefit, and we need to bring it back. And we need to go back to we the people, of the people, and for the people as well. And so we're standing up. More people are coming about, and that's what my organization is about. I market nationwide. We're a number of different organizations for this as well. And let's see. The LEAP guy was wearing this shirt, not this shirt, this is a different one I got when I went to a meeting with smoke sessions and show sessions, and we're going to have Trump 420 during the inauguration as well. We're giving out 4,200 joints to people that are going to smoke 4 minutes, 20 seconds into his speech. Okay, but aside from that, yeah, it's hitting all the newspapers and TV. You've seen it, CNN, everywhere. But anyway, and my organization really is actually the SOS PAC. I got the SOS from the Navy, help, Mayday. And so that's what I'm calling out with the Saving Our Society. And the PAC was as I said originally, Police and Citizens Together, but it's like a pack. I like acronyms that mean things. It's like a new law, new deal. And that's what we need here for the people. And actually, cannabis is the only thing, as you heard a couple ladies talk about the seizures. One of them was actually during one of your all's hearings. It's the only thing that really helped with kids with seizures. It helps with cancer as well. It eats the cancer cells. Actually, like endorphins. Endorphins is the body's self-producing antibiotic. Well, your body runs on cannabinoids. And so with the cannabinoids, it actually is a wellness plant. It's an herb. It's Mother Nature's natural, growing, healing cannabis plants, like hemp. Hemp is well ahead. Don't get you high, don't get you nothing, just healthy. It's the fact is, talking about hemp, you can get this off the, the vitamin shop. It's hemp hearts, and they have a different name for it, and it's seeds from hemp. It gives you the best protein and nutrients to help you. Helps with dementia, helps with Alzheimer's, helps with cancer, scoliosis, you name hundreds of different diseases. It's proven fact. It's proved itself. So we know what it is, so it needs to be, you need to endorse it and help the people. You represent your constituents. Also, let's see. This last Veterans Day, we had Veterans Day and a whole Veterans Weekend, a catharsis on the mall, a vigil for healing, because we need to heal with this. We need to move on and get over it. Okay, I'll do real fast here. The Gallup polls, y'all know the Gallup polls. They say right now that 60% want legalization and 80% want medical. So we need that. That's the will of the people. So represent your people and do what's right for the people, and do it now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And what I'd like to do to help educate you a little bit is
All
give you each a book.
How long were you in the Navy?
I was only in for a little over 4 years. I was in the 2nd Fleet flagship.
What was your dog tag
I
number?
was in the 6th Fleet command ship with NATO as well.
What was your dog tag number?
What was my dog tag number? That's
Yeah.
my business.
Your ID number.
Huh?
You get an ID number, don't you?
Oh, we're talking about that. Here's one when I crashed the American Legion, and they give me this thing on helping.
No, your dog tag. All right.
This most recently, and then you could have just handed out these.
It's going to take a lot more than that to solve my problems.